In this session, we will learn about creating the Commonapp account, filling the profile, family, and education sections on Commonapp. So, Christine, we are ready to go. It's time. Hi, Christine, and thanks for joining us. In this session, we'll be dealing with filling the Common app. And to all those who have joined, Christine Crosby, she is from Ohio Wesleyan University. Let me give you a brief overview of Christine. She has worked in international admissions for over 2 decades. She is a passionate advocate for the liberal arts and sciences and finding the right fit for students for Ohio Wesleyan. She loves guiding students through the college search process and providing advice. Her favorite pastime include cooking, baking, reading, cycling, hiking, and traveling. The best part is she has visited almost 60 countries and nearly a dozen cities in India since her first recruitment trip in the year 1999. Welcome, Christine, to the Next Genius webinar series. We're excited to have you with us today. And it's over to you.
Hello, yes, I'm Kristen Crosby. I'm very excited to be here. I always love sharing my knowledge and experience and doing what I can to make this application process a little bit less stressful for students. And I'm so happy to partner with Next Genius. I think this is our third year partnering with Next Genius, and it's a fantastic organization. And if any of you are able to submit your applications for the Next Genius competition, I highly recommend it. Not only is there a potential for a scholarship at the end of it, but it's a real growth process. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll get a lot of guidance through the application process, and you'll meet some amazing students through it. So don't hesitate. But with that, I'm going to introduce you to getting started with the Common application. The Common application is a time-consuming and maybe kind of cumbersome application to submit, but the benefit is that there are hundreds of colleges and universities in the United States and even around the world who accept the Common application. So if you put in the hard time to work on the Common application, there are some really great benefits to be reaped. I can't cover everything in this section, so I'm just going to start on the beginning pieces of the Common application. So let's get started with the presentation. Oops. My recommendation before you even get started with the Common application, before you even get started filling out the very most basic pieces, maybe even making your account, is to create an email address that is only for college-related communications. It's a good idea to do this. It should have your name in it. Shouldn't be some crazy email address. I mean, I've seen some really wild email addresses, so it would be great if it has your name in it. And this is an account that you should check regularly, maybe every other day, every few days. And there are several reasons, because first of all, obviously, it's going to be the place where you can find all of the notifications about what's missing from each university's application. You'll also find perhaps notifications on scholarship competitions, deadlines, webinars, visit programs, and invitations on ways to get to know each college. So maybe you'll hear from current students or professors in the academic area that you're interested in. It's also a way to help you from getting overwhelmed. So if you just use your email address, that's your personal one, you'll be finding that your college notifications are mixed in with messages from friends, messages from school, and it can be very overwhelming every time you open that email account. But if you know that you're just going to one that's dedicated to your college search, you control the time frame of when you have time to sit and read through and digest all of those messages. And it's also easy, once you kind of figure out where you're applying, to just go and unsubscribe from the colleges that you're getting all these emails from. You can just click on the bottom of a college email that you're no longer interested, and click unsubscribe. So let's go on and talk about the Common Application. There are some things that you're going to need to gather as you get started with the application. You're going to need information of your parents, and you might even just sit down with your parent and ask them the questions directly, because they will be able to give you information on where they went to school, when they graduated, what degree they earned, maybe the name of their employer, if it's a complicated name of their employer. So you could get the information in advance. Better yet, sit down with a parent and have them help you answer that parent information section. You're also going to want to get your high school transcript, because at one point you will be entering all of the names of the classes that you're taking into the application. So you could ask your guidance counselor, or if you have a way to log into your school system, or if you just know your school schedule, that you'll need to enter all of the classes that you're taking in your senior year into the Common Application. If you are taking standardized testing, you will want to save your test score somewhere, passwords to those accounts. You should also have a copy of a CV or resume. It's not really necessary, but when you're going through the activities section, it can help save time and organize if you just have a CV that you've already typed up to refer to, maybe even upload it into the additional information section. And there's also a section called Honors and Academic Achievements. That would be things like attendance awards, sports awards, community awards, anything that is a reward for your hard work. So that's another section where you'll need to type in information, and it could be good to have a copy of your CV or resume. So you are the one who's applying to university, but it's a good idea to have a support network and people to turn to through the application process. If you have a school counselor, this is the person who you can go to ask questions, ask advice, perhaps help you with your list of schools. This person is rooting for you. They're your champion, your expert. So keep in touch with your school counselor. Keep them informed of where you're applying, of where you're hearing from, if that's admissions, deferrals, wait lists. Take their advice. If your school does not have a counselor, or if maybe you're working with an independent consultant, then that's the person that you would turn to, the independent consultant. Next Genius, you can think of them as your counselors as well. But if your school doesn't have a counselor, then think of it maybe as a role that you have to take on. Your teachers are also going to be a key piece of the application process, because they are going to provide letters of recommendation. If your school uses a system like Naviance or Parchment, you don't need to know what that is, but your school will know that. They can be submitted that way. Otherwise, you can invite your recommenders through the Common Application, and they will receive an email from the Common App to be able to set up their account and submit it through the Common Application. You also want to keep your family in the loop. Ask your family for advice, share updates on your college search. So don't feel like you have to go through this alone. And if there are other people who you work with, they can be great sources of inspiration, advice, support. Those could be a sports coach, or an artistic coach, a mentor, a spiritual leader, somebody who you work with in the community, or an internship. So think of all of these people as your support network, and you're building your support network. All right, so going into the Common Application, I'm going to just share with you some screenshots for these next pieces. When you are filling out, and I think I've got this, I'm going to just go ahead a few slides because I've misplaced this slide here. Some of my, oh yes, I somehow skipped ahead to all of these slides. When you are doing the common application, as Fred Silva was describing earlier, you've got to make sure that you keep track of deadlines, application fees, and it's good to either make a little spreadsheet of them if you're somebody who would prefer to write them down in a notebook in a special bulleting format. You really want to keep track of deadlines, both in terms of application deadlines and scholarship deadlines. And fees. Some colleges and universities have a fee to apply. Others do not. Ohio Wesleyan does not charge a fee to submit an application. If there are college fees, might you qualify for a waiver, and how would you go about asking for that waiver? The common application does allow you to keep track of deadlines and fees and scholarship deadlines. So you can always keep track of that in your common application portal, but sometimes it's good to just have that elsewhere, like a spreadsheet or in your notebook. And then the other thing I want to mention is that if you have attended more than one high school, you're going to need to request the transcript, your grades from that other high school. And your counselor should send the grades, not you. And they can either do it through the system that they have at their school, which might be called Naviance or Parchment. If their school does not have that way to submit them electronically, the counselor might be able to send them by email to the college or university. Okay, so getting started with the common application. After you have created an account and you log in, you're going to see these tabs. So the tab for dashboard, that's kind of, where you can go and get all of your notifications, find all of your searches. There's a tab for My Colleges. So once you've decided where you want to apply, or even before that, when you are searching for colleges to apply, you will do that through the My Colleges tab. This tab, the Common App tab, is where you will actually complete your application, all of the main sections, and those include your profile, which is your biographical information, such as your contact information, where you live, your birth date, citizenship, all of that information. Then there is a tab for family information, and you will be giving us information on your parents' names, their employer, their employer's name, what they do for a living, their education, if they attended a college or university, or if they just completed some high school, and also your siblings' information as well. You'll also complete the education section. As I mentioned, that's where you tell us what schools you've attended. Think of the past 4 years. So if you've attended more than one school, you're going to list the schools that you've attended, the years you attended. You'll also even be able to give a reason why you changed from one school to the other. It's nothing to be concerned with. We just like to know if there was a move that you made to a different city or country, or if you chose to go to a different school for a different curriculum. Some schools end after 2 years, and then you have to go to another school to complete something called A-levels or the International Baccalaureate. So don't worry about it. Just give us the reason why you made the change. And then in the education section, you'll also be listing the classes that you're currently taking this year. Then there's a testing section. If you are choosing to apply test optional, I believe you can just leave it blank, or maybe you'll check off test optional. I don't know. I'm not somebody who completes the common application. I just read them. But if you are thinking of submitting testing, this is where you will type that in, and please refer to your test score so that you can type in the correct ones. Some colleges will just accept those test scores that you type in. And then once you are admitted and you decide to enroll, you will need to see the actual test scores from either the College Board or ACT. Other schools will require that the test scores be sent to them directly before they review your application. So you'll want to find out the policy of each college and university when it comes to testing. Then there's the activity section, where you will enter in all of the things that you've been involved in over the past 4 years. Your writing of the essay, the personal statement, and what you are thinking of doing as a major. So I'm going to go on to the next section. Before I do, I'm going to mention the education section, because this can be a little bit confusing for students applying from schools outside of the United States. You're going to enter the name of your current high school. If you attended previous schools, this is where you will enter the school that you attended before the one that you're currently attending. If you have enrolled in college at all, whether it's a summer program or you have already started a first semester or year of university, this is where you would enter colleges and universities. Your current or most recent year courses. So if you're currently enrolled in high school, you enter your current classes that you're taking now. If you've already graduated, this is where you would enter classes of the last year that you completed in high school. I'm not sure why it's asking for grades. I don't think that means the grades that you're earning. I think it means grades 9 through 12. And then honors. So if your school offers honors classes, AP courses, A-level courses, IB courses, you can list them here. This is also where you would enter academic honors. So if you got a Daily Star Award or Best Attendance Award, or you earned a full merit scholarship or partial merit scholarship to your school. If you won Best Debater or top student, any of the honors that you've earned through your school, any accolades, you'll be entering here in this honors section. All right, on to the next slide. In terms of the personal information, this is going to be one of the first things that you fill out, and you want to fill it out, your first name, your given name, your middle name, your last name or surname. Most students do not have a suffix, so don't worry about that. And if you go by a different first name, you can click yes. That's how many colleges are going to email you. So if you have a nickname, don't, really only use that different name if you want us to email you by that different name. There are choices for gender identity. There are many countries in the world where gender identity recognizes that the gender that you're born with might not be the gender that you identify with, and these pronouns represent the gender identity. So if you identify as a he or a him, or a she or a her, you can click that. And then if you are somebody who does not really identify with a he or a she, that's what they or them would refer to. Going on with contact information, I just am pointing out that on this page, your preferred phone number, that should be preferably a mobile number of yours if you have a mobile number. Colleges and universities may occasionally text you. They may occasionally text you that something is missing from your application, or to log into your portal and check your application status because maybe you've been admitted or maybe you've been awarded a scholarship. So that's why I suggest that you put your mobile number rather than a home number if you're not going to answer it, or a parent's mobile number. Your parent's mobile number can be added later under the parent section, but think of this as where you would want an admission officer or a student or professor to contact you. If it's by text, if it's by phone, many times you won't ever be contacted at that number, but how would you want them to contact you? That's why I suggest the mobile number is best. If you do have another number where you could be reached, perhaps it's a home phone landline, you could add it there. If you don't have one, you can leave it blank. And then on this section, also in the profile section, what I wanted to point out here, because I find that oftentimes students find this confusing, they're not quite sure. You're going to select your citizen status, your countries of citizenship. So if you have more than one passport, you can list multiple passports. If you currently hold a valid US visa, this is where you would check it off. Do you intend to apply for a new visa? So oftentimes students might have a tourist visa, and what you will be getting is a student visa. So if you do not have a student visa, you will need to apply and click yes. And the visa type that most of you would be getting would be the F1 student visa. So I mention that because oftentimes students aren't sure and they either choose the wrong one or maybe they leave it blank. So just a few things I'm pointing out now on the parent information section. Above here would be your parent's name and phone number and address, if they're married to each other, if they're still living. And then once you scroll down, there are a couple things that I want to point out in the parent section. There's a drop-down menu for the parent's occupation. So take your time scrolling through, pick the one that pertains closest to your parent's employment. And then this section here, the employment status, sorry, I actually meant down here. So employment status, if they're employed or not employed, if they work for a college or university, this section down here is not required. You can see where there's a red asterisk, that means they're required. It's still helpful for us to know where your parent is employed. Many students leave it blank, but it's helpful. It's interesting for us to know. And then once you go down here, your parent's education level. So this might be where you want to get your parent and say, hey, I've got some questions. Can you help me answer this? Did they attend high school? Did they attend some high school, college or university, graduate school? It's a required question. How many institutions did they attend? Maybe one if they went to college, two if they went to college and graduate school. So, and then I think it also will ask for the name of the institutions and the years of graduation. So that's probably also another reason why you want your parent with you. So as I mentioned, the required questions are marked with a red asterisk. There are going to be some sections that you will be confused about, you're not sure, such as school ranking, and GPA and weighting. So I'll go to the next slide for that. A rank in class. If your school does not calculate a rank in class, you can just select none. If you do have a rank in class, then you can enter it. In terms of a GPA, a grade point average, if your school does not calculate a grade point average, you can leave it blank. If your school uses a grading scale different from the options that are available, leave it blank. And I mention this because I know that in India, with the national curriculum, there are many different varieties of grading, even within India, according to city or region or province or state. So it might be a good idea to just leave the grading scale blank, but rest assured that admission officers are very familiar with all of the different grading scales. So don't worry that we won't be able to read it. We will be able to read your application and understand your grading scale. And there's a question about a weighted GPA. I wouldn't worry about that. Some schools do what's called weighting. They add extra points or weight for honors, AP, IB courses, A levels. If your school does not calculate a weighted GPA, don't worry about it. So just a few helpful hints as you're doing the profile and the educational and the parent information section on the Common Application. Use your official name, which should be the same as it appears in your documents, your transcript, your passport, SAT scores. Hopefully your name should match on all of those items. If it's different, you want to email the admission office and say, oh, my SAT score, the name is different, and the reason is why. As I mentioned, your preferred name, that's how colleges will email you. So if you want to be referred by that nickname, great, but don't put in a funny name just to be humorous. Your gender identity, you can elaborate if you feel that you don't identify with the same gender that you were born with. Your visa type, F1. Don't leave the activities section completely blank. There are certainly things that you've done throughout high school to write about. And I think I'll leave these for the next person to talk about. And here is my contact information. So I think I've left a few moments for questions. Happy to take some questions.
Yes, Christine, thank you so much. So I can see that a lot of questions are coming up on the transcript. So if you could shed some light on how exactly universities are looking at the transcripts. For example, I'll take up a question asked by Sania. She has asked, how do I add transcripts of my dual enrollment classes? Do I add to the education section, or I directly send the official transcripts to my admission counselor for review? So can you shed some light on the transcripts? How exactly do we request for the transcripts, and what are the universities looking out for?
Yes, so when you're typing into the section on the Common Application that you're taking dual enrollment classes, you will just type those in alongside the classes that you're taking with your high school. You should meet with your school official and actually ask them how the dual enrollments show up on a transcript. So your school should probably show, since it's a dual enrollment, should probably be listing those on the transcript. And I don't think you would need to ask that other institution for a copy of the transcript to prove the dual enrollment, because that's the relationship that the dual enrollment kind of guarantees. So they should already be showing up on your current high school.
Great. Now, moving on to the next question, that is, would filling the additional COVID essay strengthen the application or weaken it?
In terms of that essay, first of all, I will say that it is optional. So don't feel the pressure to fill it out if it doesn't really feel like something that is going to provide any extra information. There are some students who were very adversely affected during COVID. They might have lost a family member. They might have missed a month or more of school because they contracted COVID. Their family might have lost huge income because of a loss of a business. So if you were truly negatively impacted by COVID, feel free to write about it. If you just were struggling because you didn't really like online learning, or your football, your soccer matches were canceled because of COVID, you can write about that, but don't feel the pressure that you have to write about COVID unless you really, truly were impacted in a way that you feel the admission office needs to know.
Thank you, Christine, for the suggestions. Moving on to the last question. Any tips for shortlisting the universities and evaluating if the profile is suited for that particular university?
Yeah, so I don't think I was asked to speak about that. Otherwise, I would have given more tips on that. But my advice for you is that shortlisting the universities, the Common Application has some fantastic searches and filters. So if you want to filter by geographic location, if you want to filter by academic subject, a certain major, you can filter by that. If you want to filter by cost, or if they offer financial aid to international students, that's a filter you can use. You can even filter on colleges that don't have an application fee or are test optional. So there are really so many ways that you can set your filter, and it will pop up the lists of schools that meet those criteria. And then you can read about the different colleges and universities on the Common Application, get to know them. So that's how you can start doing your research, through adding colleges. And you can add many colleges, but you don't have to necessarily apply or submit your Common Application to the ones that show up in your short list or your research.
Thank you so much, Christine. So it's time for us to wind up the session. Before we close the session, could you tell us a little bit about Ohio Wesleyan University? And with that, we can end the session.
Yes, so I'm just going to put up another PowerPoint. It'll be very quick. I'll try to do like a little 1-minute introduction to Ohio Wesleyan. Let me share my screen. So Ohio Wesleyan was founded in 1842. We were founded as a place that was meant to be open and welcoming to anyone of any religious background, cultural background, ethnic background, and gender. We even had women in our first classes at Ohio Wesleyan. So we continue to be a very welcoming place today. We're a small private university with about 1,500 students, and we are intentionally small so that you can have very close relationships with professors who will mentor you. And so you can also take advantage of our key components, which are research, creative internships, and travel learning experiences. In terms of where we're located, we're in a small, safe city called Delaware, Ohio. And you can walk to Delaware in just about 2 minutes and get to nearly 50 restaurants, cafes, a movie theater, shops. But we're very close to a large city. So this large city pictured here is Columbus. It's the 14th largest city in the United States. And Columbus has a lot to offer students, from community service, internships, sporting events, great dining, shopping, world-class museums. So, and even in an international airport. So you can probably get to Columbus in 2 or maybe 3 flights from where you are. And then we pick students up at the airport. Our average class is 15 students, and we have over 70 majors. So from accounting to zoology, there is something for just about everyone. And popular majors include computer science, biology and the biological and life sciences, environment and sustainability. We also have physics and astronomy, which I know is very popular with our Next Genius students. I think I mentioned business, economics, finance, politics, and government. So there are a lot of wonderful majors that we offer. And we really strive to make learning very hands-on through research and internship opportunities, and even semester-long internships and apprenticeships. So this picture at the bottom is a Washington, D.C. semester for politics and government. We have a fine arts program in New York City for a semester, a humanities program in Chicago for a semester, and business and finance in Philadelphia. And it is free to apply to Ohio Wesleyan. We accept the Common Application or our own. We are test optional, and you'll automatically be considered either for the Next Genius Scholarship or a Merit Scholarship. So I will turn it over to my next colleague.
Thank you so much. It was really good to know about Ohio Wesleyan University. Thanks a lot for joining us, Christine, and thanks for telling us and guiding us on the Common app. Moving on to